The doctors warned her family not to hope too much, but hope was the only thing they had. Emily Harper arrived far too early on a rain-soaked March morning, small enough to fit in her father's palm, her chest fluttering as if unsure whether it belonged to this world. Machines hummed softly around her incubator, and for weeks, her parents learned to measure time in beeps and breaths. Against every expectation, Emily survived. From the very beginning, she was fighting. She grew up in a modest brick house on the edge of a working-class neighborhood, the kind where neighbors waved from porches and children rode bikes until the streetlights flickered on. Her parents worked long hours, but home was steady, warm, and loud with laughter. Family dinners were sacred. Arguments never lasted long. Love was constant. Emily's hearing impairment was discovered when she was still young. It made school harder and crowded rooms overwhelming, but it never broke her spirit. She learned to read lips instinctively, to tilt her head just right, to smile even when she missed parts of conversations. Music became her refuge. She couldn't hear it the way others did, but she felt it, through vibrations, through rhythm, through the way it made her chest swell. Choir practice gave her confidence. Community gave her purpose. As a teenager, Emily was gentle in a way people noticed. She defended classmates who were teased. She walked friends home when it got dark. Teachers described her as kind, maybe too kind. At home, she was deeply bonded to her siblings, the peacekeeper during arguments, the one who hugged first. But when school ended, so did the structure that had quietly held her together. Without daily routines or clear direction, Emily felt unmoored. Jobs came and went. Applications went unanswered. The world felt suddenly vast and indifferent. She wanted to belong somewhere again, to be needed, to be seen. That longing made her vulnerable. New friends appeared, offering acceptance without questions. Nights grew longer. Promises came easy. Slowly, subtly, her life shifted off course. What began as escape became dependence. Her family saw the change before she did, the tired eyes, the missed calls, the excuses that never quite made sense. They tried everything. Open doors. Second chances. Late-night talks at the kitchen table. But support was limited, resources scarce, and shame kept too many conversations quiet. Emily slipped further away, piece by piece. By her early 20s, the girl who once sang through vibrations was barely recognizable. And the world, which had never been gentle, was about to become cruel. Emily told herself she was just passing through a rough patch. At first, the changes were small enough to explain away. She slept late. She missed family dinners. She stopped answering messages until days later, then apologized with a tired smile and vague excuses about work. Her parents wanted to believe her. They remembered the fragile baby who had fought to breathe, the gentle teenager who protected others. Surely this phase would pass too. But the streets introduced Emily to a different rhythm of life, one without rules or promises. The people she gravitated toward spoke the language of survival. They offered protection, belonging, and relief from the ache she carried inside. They didn't ask about her past or her family. They didn't care that she once sang in a choir or that music still lived inside her bones. What they offered came with a price. Emily didn't fall all at once. She slipped. One decision blurred into the next. Nights bled into mornings. What once felt like escape hardened into routine. Dependency crept in quietly, tightening its grip day by day. Her world narrowed to the next moment, the next need, the next place she could feel briefly okay. Her family noticed the weight loss first. Then the bruises she couldn't explain. Then the way she flinched when someone raised their voice. Conversations grew strained. Help was offered again and again, rides to appointments, couches to sleep on, promises of starting over. But every step forward was followed by two back. The system around them felt cold and impenetrable. Waiting lists were long. Doors closed quickly. Judgment came easily. Emily's hearing impairment made navigating services harder, and too often she left offices confused, overwhelmed, and ashamed. Each setback pushed her further from the life she once knew. Eventually, stability vanished entirely. Emily lost her job. Then her apartment. She carried her belongings in a worn backpack, drifting between temporary places, always careful not to stay too long. The people around her changed. Some were kind. Many were not. Trust became a currency she could no longer afford. By her early 20s, survival dictated every choice. When money ran out, options disappeared. The streets were unforgiving, especially to someone as gentle as Emily. Older men noticed her vulnerability. Promises were made and broken. Protection was offered, then withdrawn. She learned quickly that safety was never guaranteed, only negotiated. She tried to keep contact with her family, but shame built a wall she couldn't climb. When she did call home, she sounded distant, distracted, as if already halfway gone. Her mother would hang up and cry, sensing something terrible but unable to reach her. Emily was still alive, still breathing, but the girl she had been was fading. And one night, after being dropped off alone in a familiar stretch of road where the city stopped caring, she vanished completely. The last confirmed sighting of Emily Harper came on a cold, quiet night when the city felt indifferent and half asleep. She had been riding in a car with someone she barely knew, headlights cutting through empty streets. There was no argument, no obvious fear, nothing that would later stand out as a warning. When the car slowed near a stretch of road long known for street-level activity, Emily gathered her bag and stepped out. The vehicle pulled away without hesitation, its taillights shrinking into the dark. Emily stood alone. Streetlights flickered overhead. A faint wind carried the smell of damp asphalt and distant traffic. She adjusted her jacket and started walking, scanning the shadows for familiar faces, familiar dangers. This place was not new to her. She had learned how to move here, when to speak, when to stay silent, when to disappear into the background. But that night, something went wrong. Sometime after midnight, Emily vanished. By morning, her phone went unanswered. Messages from acquaintances bounced back unread. By evening, her family felt the familiar knot of dread tighten in their chests. Emily had gone quiet before, but never like this. There were no social media updates. No sightings. No borrowed couches. Just absence. They reported her missing, their voices steady but shaking. Officers took notes, asked routine questions, and promised to look into it. In a system stretched thin, Emily was filed among many others, another vulnerable adult, another case without urgency. Days turned into weeks. Posters appeared on telephone poles and shop windows, her smiling photograph staring out at strangers. Her family walked familiar streets, asking questions, clinging to rumors. Some people claimed they had seen her. Others looked away, unwilling to get involved. Fear kept mouths shut. Silence became a second enemy. Then, weeks later, a passerby noticed something unnatural in a shallow rural stream miles from where Emily was last seen. What was first mistaken for debris turned out to be a body. The area was remote, surrounded by fields and bare trees, the kind of place no one stumbled upon by accident. Investigators arrived to find Emily there, hidden by water and brush. She had not died where she was found. She had been brought there deliberately, left where discovery would be delayed. The news shattered her family. They were called into a quiet room, where words felt heavy and inadequate. Identification was made through careful, heartbreaking steps. The waiting was over, but the answers they needed were nowhere to be found. Emily's life had ended violently, her final moments unknown. The girl who had survived fragile beginnings, who loved music and protected others, had been discarded like she never mattered at all. And now, the search for who did this, and why, was only just beginning. The discovery of Emily Harper's body triggered a surge of urgency that had been missing in the early days of her disappearance. Detectives descended on the rural site where she had been found, photographing the shallow stream, the trampled grass, the tire marks that led nowhere. It was immediately clear she had not been harmed there. The location was chosen for concealment, not confrontation. Whoever left her knew the area well enough to avoid attention and delay discovery. An official investigation was launched. Her movements in the days before she vanished were reconstructed piece by fragile piece. Officers interviewed people who had crossed her path, drivers, acquaintances, residents near the street where she was last seen. Some cooperated. Many did not. Fear hung thick in the air, heavier than guilt. Rumors surfaced quickly. Names were whispered but never written down. A few individuals were brought in for questioning, only to be released hours later. Stories conflicted. Alibis shifted. Without consistent testimony, nothing held. Forensic work provided limited clarity. Evidence confirmed she had been harmed elsewhere, but time and exposure had erased critical details. The delay in reporting her disappearance, combined with the delay in locating her, had cost investigators precious opportunities. Surveillance footage was overwritten. Phone data incomplete. Leads went cold before they could be followed. Behind closed doors, mistakes were quietly acknowledged. Early assumptions about Emily's lifestyle had shaped the investigation in subtle but devastating ways. Some tips were deprioritized. Some witnesses were never recontacted. Her family sensed it immediately, that she was not being searched for with the same urgency as someone else might have been. They pushed back. Emily's parents attended meetings, demanded updates, asked the same questions again and again. Each time, the answers sounded thinner. Progress slowed. The initial task force shrank. Media interest faded. The city moved on. But Emily's family could not. Birthdays passed without candles. Holidays arrived with empty chairs. Her mother kept her phone on at night, volume turned all the way up, just in case. Her father drove the route she was last seen on, memorizing every turn, every streetlight, as if repetition could summon truth. Months turned into years. The case file grew dusty, its pages filled with unanswered questions and missed connections. Eventually, the investigation was officially classified as cold. No charges were filed. No suspect named. Emily Harper became another unresolved name in a system full of them. But time has a way of circling back. Decades later, with new eyes and new tools, someone would open that file again, and discover how much had been overlooked. Time did not soften the loss, it only changed its shape. For Emily Harper's family, grief settled into daily life like a permanent ache. They learned how to function around it, how to speak her name without breaking, how to live with questions that never stopped circling. But they never stopped pushing. Every few years, they wrote letters. They made calls. They asked for reviews. Most went unanswered. Then, quietly, something changed. A new generation of investigators began re-examining unresolved cases, armed with modern forensic techniques and a willingness to challenge old assumptions. Emily's file was pulled from storage, its pages yellowed, its edges worn. What they found inside was troubling, not just what was there, but what was missing. Early interviews had never been followed up. Some witness statements conflicted in ways no one had noticed before. Evidence that could not be tested at the time was now viable. Small details, dismissed years earlier, suddenly mattered. The case was officially reopened. For Emily's family, the call came without warning. Hope returned cautiously, like a fragile thing they were afraid to touch too hard. Detectives explained that past mistakes had been identified. They spoke honestly about delays, missed opportunities, and bias that had shaped the original investigation. It was validation, but it was also painful. New forensic testing was conducted on preserved evidence. Advances allowed analysts to extract information that had once been impossible to reach. Investigators retraced Emily's final known movements, re-interviewing people who had once refused to talk. Some were older now. Some were afraid. Some were finally willing. A few new leads emerged. Names resurfaced, men who had been questioned briefly and dismissed, individuals known to operate in the area where Emily disappeared. One was arrested on unrelated charges, reigniting speculation. Another had died years earlier, taking secrets with him. Each development brought momentum, then frustration. The closer investigators looked, the clearer it became how much time had stolen. Memories had faded. Witnesses had moved away. Records were incomplete. Fear had done its work well. While new evidence raised possibilities, it stopped just short of certainty. No one could be placed definitively with Emily that night. No single thread could be pulled without unraveling. Still, the case did not close again. Emily's name returned to brief headlines. Her photograph resurfaced. People who had never heard of her learned her story for the first time. For her family, it felt like she was being seen again, not as a statistic, but as a person. But justice remained out of reach. Despite renewed effort, the truth stayed hidden, locked behind silence and time. The killer remained unidentified, protected by years of distance and missed chances. And once more, Emily's family was left waiting, this time with clearer answers about what went wrong, but still no answer to who did it. Years have passed since Emily Harper was found in that quiet rural stream, but time has not closed the wound, it has only taught her family how to carry it. Her childhood home has new occupants now. The walls have been repainted. The garden is different. But her bedroom still exists in memory, frozen in a softer time, when music hummed through the floorboards and laughter came easily. Her parents keep a single framed photo on the mantel, Emily mid-smile, eyes bright, unaware of what the world would later take from her. The reopened investigation brought truth, but not closure. Officials acknowledged the failures, the delays, the assumptions, the silence that was allowed to settle too quickly. Policies were reviewed. Procedures changed. Emily's case became part of training sessions, cited as a reminder of what happens when vulnerability is mistaken for invisibility. But accountability did not bring justice. The evidence uncovered years later was strong enough to raise questions, not strong enough to name a killer. The trail had grown cold long ago, scattered by fear, time, and missed chances. Whoever ended Emily's life remained free, unnamed, uncharged, and unexposed. For her family, hope now lives in a quieter place. They attend memorial events for others like Emily. They speak when asked. They share her story not as a warning, but as a remembrance, of a girl who fought to live, who loved deeply, who deserved protection instead of harm. They refuse to let her be reduced to how she died. Emily was more than her final years. She was a premature baby who survived the impossible. A child who adapted without complaint. A teenager who stood up for others. A young woman who searched for belonging in a world that failed her. Her life mattered long before it ended, and it still matters now. The case remains open. Somewhere, someone knows what happened that night. Someone remembers a detail they've never shared. Someone has carried a secret for decades. And investigators continue to hope that one day, that silence will break. Until then, Emily Harper's name stays on the list, not forgotten, not closed, not erased. Just waiting.